What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are the Power Rankings guys, and we are here once again to power rank everything Survivor Michigan. I'm Paul, and I'm here with Joe.
Hey, everybody.
And we are hurtling towards the finish line.
Yeah, we're at the final six. Crazy. We've had a couple tough losses in the last couple
Tough
episodes.
losses.
If we want to talk about that.
I don't want to talk about it. We probably should. Twice in a row now, we lost two of our favorite Sabu Sabus, two of our favorite players in general.
Yeah.
Well, we can start with Eliza, losing Eliza at the final 8.
So tough. I mean,
I know.
I feel like we've had her near or at the top of our power rankings lists since the season started.
Totally.
So it was very strange sitting down and coming up with my list without her name. I almost started writing her name just from muscle memory.
I agree.
But yeah, that episode was tough. I mean, big idol play from Aaron.
Yeah, totally weird set of circumstances. The stealing of immunity, then the idol play.
Right.
Just it sort of felt like she was just doomed. Like it was the final destination for Eliza, and like nothing that happened, starting with Dylan and Brady both winning immunity when they really could have had a shot at getting especially Brady out that week, and possibly even Dylan if it hadn't been both of them being immune.
Right.
And so it's sort of like, I think that's what's happened these last 2 weeks is like, I think easily you could have made a play for Dylan or Brady last week or the week before, but with them both being immune 2 weeks in a row now, it's like, what are you going to do?
Right. And I feel like Aaron's idol play sort of like, I don't want to say overshadowed Dylan's move of stealing the immunity, but like that was kind of the perfect setup of like, Dylan steals the immunity from Brady and then Brady goes. Like that would have been a huge moment. But leave it to Aaron to just throw a wrench in everyone's plans and
she is good
idol.
at that, isn't she?
Honestly, yeah, I think. And just the way that she, and I was going to, we'll talk about this more in our rankings, but just like the way that she kind of handled the other side of the numbers and buttered them all up. Very maniacal.
She sure did.
I mean, I think it's so funny watching, especially when you kind of are like rooting for multiple people. It's kind of like, I didn't necessarily want to see Brady go, but I kind of did with just how things were happening. So it's so funny when like, so she uses the idol and you're like, oh no. And then you just know that, and then Eliza going, it sucked, but
yeah,
it's
definitely.
It's really funny just watching it from when you are rooting for multiple people. And it's just kind of like, it's almost like you're like Doctor Strange, like watching every, all the millions of scenarios that could happen. That was a tough one. I feel like
that's a great reference.
Yeah, we were that moment when he just started like yelling and flipping out at people. I feel like there was probably
it was
lot
so
of people
intense.
Yeah, a lot of people were probably yelling at their screens.
I think it was like it was such an intense moment that it like definitely, because we don't usually see that kind of emotion. But it was good. Like I found it to be totally endearing because I was like, yeah, like it does suck. Like,
right.
I am also upset about this.
Yes, exactly. So it was good just to know that someone else felt the same way.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of Austin, man, brutal to lose Eliza and then Austin in back-to-back weeks.
So
two definite fan favorite characters, or at least us favorite characters.
Right. I mean, Austin was the super duper fan, the Sabu Sabu loyalist, the challenge beast. That whole episode was crazy, just with not having a lot of time, and Austin was close to winning that challenge as well. I think he was
really close.
Maybe
he
only
was in the lead at one point.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, this would be great.
That would have been awesome, but it was not meant to be, unfortunately.
Not at all.
Yeah, and I mean, once again, Brady really coming through clutch when he needed to.
Absolutely.
Because he's been safe, 3... let's see, because he won when they did the split, he was immune. And then at 8, he won the immunity with Dylan and then got saved by Aaron's idol when Dylan stole it. And then at 7, won
Right.
immunity. So this is 3 weeks in a row he's been unable to be voted out.
Right.
Which, I mean, that's impressive.
It is. I mean, he was already like a social. So now with some immunities and, yeah, being safe for a few weeks in a row is definitely huge. So it's going to be a wild ending. And obviously we learned some knowledge in this last episode that it's going to be a
Yes.
final 2. So I thought
Yes,
that
which is
was really
exciting.
interesting. Yeah, I think it definitely like changes things because now, I'm sure people were thinking about who they wanted to sit with in the final 3. So now you have to take one of those options out, and I think it's going to change up the strategy a little bit. So I think it like came at the right time. I feel like,
Yes.
not saying it was necessarily predictable in any way, but I feel like that is going to have to change up a few people's plans because now, if you were locked in with a 3 or you had a 3 in mind, I mean, yes, you could still get to 3 with those people, but there's going to be one extra vote and someone's going to not make it to the end. And I
Exactly.
think that's going to definitely, change up a few plans.
I think especially for like the Dylan, Devin, Cassie dynamic,
Yep.
I think that definitely is going to make, I'm not sure who, but at least one or more of them wary.
Yes,
Because I
absolutely.
think, I mean, that would, to me, it was starting to seem like that was going to be the final 3 was Dylan, Devin, and Cassie. And it was sort of like
Right.
there was nothing we could do, excuse me, about it. And
Right.
now it's like, oh, okay, well, if only 2 of the 3 are going to make it, I mean, especially for Dylan, he has to kind of be thinking like, man, are either of these people going to take me?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. That final 3 immunity now it could destroy people's games or it could really help people's games. So it's going to be
Absolutely.
really
And
crazy to see what
especially when you're
happens.
looking at like when is a good time to take out Brady, like if it was a final 3, you'd be thinking, well, now we should take out Brady now. But now that it's a final 2, you're thinking maybe he needs to stay around another week or so and then cut him when. But he's been so good at the challenges that it's like, do you take a shot the first time he loses one and
Right.
or risk him, running the table?
Yep. Yeah, a lot of things to consider, even more
Yeah,
than
so
before. So,
I think it's a perfectly timed twist. Like you said, you were so
yeah.
right when you said that because it really does shake up the game and shake up people's plans, which is what you want to happen in a situation like this where you're not just
hmm
heading towards an inevitable final 3. It's not like Winners at War where it's like, oh, okay, we can see where this is going. Like it's like,
Right.
no,
Right.
we like now that it's 2, it's like who knows who could be here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
hmm
So, without further ado, do we want to start at the bottom like we usually do?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, once again, we have not pre discussed this. So, this is all happening live in real time. You are hearing this as it is occurring. So, who do you have in that 6th spot?
I have Cassie.
I do too.
And, I think, we kind of talked about this before. I mean, she's kind of played under the radar a little bit,
Mm
not made as many sort of flashy moves as some other people. And I think, it's interesting now with this final 2 scenario where I feel like she probably was in a lot of people's final 3 plans.
hmm. Yes.
So it's interesting because I was like thinking, I know there's definitely been seasons. I mean, my gosh, there's so many Survivor seasons, whether it's fan made or college or, the TV show where um, sometimes that argument comes into play where it's kind of like, I feel like Cassie's kind of like the GOAT of the final
Yes.
6. And I don't mean that in like a negative way. It's just kind of, I feel like if she made it to the end, I can't see her winning against anyone else. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of why we're saying that. But I think it could be interesting to be like, her target might actually grow now
Mm-hmm.
because of that, of her being in that spot, because it's like, well, wait, there's only 2 spots at 3. So if she could get taken out at some point, just as one of those things where it's like, well, it would just open up a spot for someone else. So I
Absolutely.
think with, you know, with those kind of 2 things kind of working against her, it would be, I feel like it's actually tougher for her now to get to the end, in my opinion,
I
with it
totally
being a
agree.
final 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anybody left she can beat, which isn't, like you said, it's not really a dig at her.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way the game has unfolded. I mean, the only other person left in the game who doesn't really have any moves to their name is Devin.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, Devin has the 3 Sabu votes locked in.
Right.
So I think it would be much harder for Cat, because even if it's Devin and Cassie in the end, Devin probably gets Dylan at least, if not potentially Aaron or Will in there. And I think that's the game.
Yeah.
That's numbers wise, that's the end. And so I think Cassie is somebody who probably can't win against anybody left in the end. And like you said, now that it's a final 2, her path to get there is much more difficult
Mm-hmm.
because especially if you're I'm thinking especially if you're Aaron and Devin, you're thinking I want to be in that spot if somehow Dylan, Brady, Will, whoever is the guy at the final 2, I want to be in that second spot sitting next to them, or I want to be in the spot next to Devin or Aaron, whoever's talking. And
Right.
so I think it
Right.
makes Cassie like a lot more dangerous to their games as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. I think having her at 6 is the right spot, despite the fact that Cassie seems to be like good. Like she hasn't really, outside of like, maybe sometimes she's a little bit blunt and
Mm-hmm.
like, her attitude at the Rocks Tribal, I think was not great. But
Right.
also that was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, who cares?
Mm.
Nobody's still I mean, we're still thinking about it. Rest in peace, Andrew. I'll be thinking about it
Right.
forever. But like, I think she has gotten better as the game has gone along with that. We've seen her even in one-on-one meetings with like Austin and stuff, like playing the game and doing stuff. I think she's
Mm-hmm.
just a victim of the circumstance she's in, and it's not really
Absolutely.
a reflection on the quality of her as a player. It happens, where you get into
Mm-hmm.
a situation and you're the GOAT. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad player. It's just in this particular, and I mean, we've seen it happen in all-star seasons with good players who
Right.
became GOATs,
Mm-hmm.
who really, I mean, we saw it in Winners at War, with Ben. Ben had one survivor. He was $1 million winner and he was a GOAT.
Right. Right.
So it just happens to be the circumstances that you're in that moment.
Absolutely agree.
Alrighty,
Cool.
number 5.
Okay, this was a little bit tough for me, but
Mm-hmm.
I put Devin.
Oh, okay. I had Will in the number 5
Okay.
spot. So let's talk Devin first.
Okay. So it's tough. Like, I mean, I love Devin. I think I feel like ever since the where him and Eliza played like the double idols, I think he
Yes.
sort of emerged,
Mm-hmm.
as a bigger player. I guess sometimes like strategy versus like people's stories kind of weave
Mm-hmm.
into my thought process. So I was just kind of like, I feel like I don't know if he has like the winning story of the final
Yeah,
6, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Now, obviously, there's still 4 people need to go, so he could win immunities, like blindside some people. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely room for him to create that story in the final legs of the game. But just for me personally, I feel like there's definitely still like bigger personalities, bigger players with bigger moves in the game. So I think unless he was sitting next to Cassie, and maybe Will or Aaron, I'm not sure. Like I don't know if at this moment in time he has enough not to win.
I agree. I don't know that he has the respect of the jury,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is going to be a huge hurdle for him if he gets there. But like I said earlier, I do think he has those 3 Sabu Sabu votes locked in.
Right.
Like I really think he does. So even though I agree with all the points you made, I do think he doesn't have the story yet. Not to say it
Hmm.
couldn't happen, but he doesn't really have the
Right.
story yet or the respect of the jury necessarily yet. I think having those votes locked in, you only have to win two jury votes, really,
Right.
in order to win the game. And we've seen people have really great final tribal council performances and really terrible final tribal council
Hmm.
performances, you know, and um there's really, I think, especially if he were to make it there, you know, because obviously if he makes it there with Cassie, I think he wins.
Right.
But if he were to make it there with Aaron or Will, I don't think it's locked in for either of those two. Because I don't think Ben wants to vote for Will. So I think in that situation, Devin probably has four locked in jury votes and has to win one person.
Right.
Now, is it
Yeah.
possible that Eliza votes for Will in that scenario and he goes back to only having three locked votes? Sure, of course it is. But I just think, you know, somebody could I think someone could lose the game to Devin. I'm not sure that Devin could win the game for
Hmm.
himself, but I think somebody could lose the game to Devin.
That makes sense.
It's
Yeah.
entirely possible.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Who did you have in your
So
five?
I had Will.
Okay, I had him as my four, so
Okay,
that's good.
good.
Okay, you start then. What?
I
For
had
Will.
Will at five because I think I think he's in the same scenario that we talked about with Cassie. Is I don't know how he gets there, and I don't know really how he wins if he does get there.
Hmm.
I just had him one spot above Cassie because I think in the extremely unlikely scenario that it's Will and Cassie, I do think Will beats her.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know who wants to go to the end with him. Because I don't I think his best shot would be with Devin or Cassie, and I don't see either of them wanting to go to the end with him.
Hmm.
I just think he at this point he has played a big enough game to where people would see him as a threat. So nobody's going to take him as a goat because he has done enough to not be considered a goat.
Right.
But he's not in any kind of social position right now to make a run.
Hmm.
He hasn't won any challenges and doesn't like I don't what has he even been close in a challenge? Like is there even because I
Uh,
don't even think in touchy subjects he was close.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, he maybe was third or fourth there. If I could, my memory
Yeah.
serves me
So I
right.
don't so I don't know like I don't see him winning challenges. I don't see him I just don't think that there's really any path for him to get to the end and I'm not sure that he wins if he gets there.
Yeah, I put him one spot above Devin just because, like I was saying before, about just kind of like comparing just their stories. I feel like Will
Yeah.
more of that in the end. So that's why I just put him at number four. But yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, he's a really interesting player. Like, you know, this whole situation. I mean, that was really a big part of his like storyline was like them coming together in the
Mhm.
very beginning and then them really splitting apart and kind of going against each other. So, I mean, if he maneuvered his way through this final six and made it to the end, I think his kind of stock would go up a little bit with the jury. So
Mhm.
it's really, you know, I know we kind of say this about everyone, but it'll be really interesting to see like where he goes from here. I mean, I think, you
Yeah.
know, again, I think with the final two, it's like I don't see anyone locking in a final two with him.
No.
Um, but it's going to just be like, how far does he go? Does he pull out an immunity win randomly in the next couple rounds? Like, I think there's a lot of question marks on, you know, how far he
Yeah,
can go. And
I think we're really looking at two tiers of players here.
mm-hmm.
I think there's Will, Devin, and Cassie, and then of the people who probably can only beat each other in some sort of scenario.
Right.
Um, and then we're gonna move on to talk about the next tier, which are the people who can win in multiple scenarios and probably have a path of getting
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah. That's,
Um,
yep.
and that's like for me when I split up. So that's why I don't mind the Devon or Will 4 or 5. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it really matters because I think we're talking about two really distinct tiers of player here. of the probably can't win and probably can win players.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Again, with Will and Ben, I keep going back to San Juan del Sur and Josh and Jeremy and that whole feud and the explosion of that whole thing and how it ended up like neither one of them ended up making a deep run in the game because they
Hmm.
blew up the feud too early.
Right.
And
Right.
that's exactly what happened with if Will and Ben don't blow up there at 11 and then we go to the unmerge and they go to 5-5 and they both survive there and then we're at 8 with Ben and Will still in the game, we're talking about a totally different end game for both of those guys.
Absolutely. And I think we said that too a couple podcasts ago. Like,
Mm-hmm.
going into the merge, it was like Will versus Ben versus Will. But it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like there was no, it was like, okay, once you do that, then what? There was no like next
Exactly.
steps. So yeah, I agree. I think that happening that soon um, was a detriment to kind of both of them. So
It's like I know like this is like a nerdy niche reference, but it's like in pro wrestling, like when you have two guys like who are feuding in pro wrestling, like you don't want to put them immediately into a match and have somebody pin the other one. You want
yes.
to draw it out for months and months and months, so it's interesting and interesting and interesting, and then you want to do the big blow up at the perfect
Hmm.
moment. And I think like I understand that it would be very hard to do that in the practical sense
Right.
in the game, but like if they could have like just milked this feud and kept knocking off people from either side but not like actually each other, they would be, and if they were in the game right now with lieutenants, they would be in such a good spot right if it was like Will, Aliza, Austin, and Aaron, and then Ben and Emily and Dylan and Cassie. Like at this point in the game, they really could probably ride this to the end.
Hmm. I totally agree. Yeah, it's yeah. In an alternate timeline, Will and Ben
Yes.
merge, met up, said, "Let's continue this feud, but really, we're gonna try to work together and you know ride it out." So really deep in the merge,
Yeah,
but again, Doctor
absolutely.
Strange did not see that
That was
one
one of the Doctor
happening.
Strange futures.
So we'd have to go to like another universe to see that happen. So maybe in the future, who knows? But
That's
uh
exactly what I was going to say. That is so funny.
okay, so let's go
Alrighty,
to
so now
our
we're moving on to this second tier of
yes.
players who could probably win, maybe win. We'll see. Who do you
Hmm.
have in number 3?
I put Aaron.
Okay, I have Brady in number 3,
Okay.
but I'm guessing we flip flop there too, like we
Yes.
usually do.
Right.
All right, so let's start with Aaron.
Okay. Obviously, as we've said in the past, like her story. Again, here I am with the story.
Mm-hmm.
Her just
Yeah,
story throughout this
you're
entire
Jonathan Penner. I like this.
her story throughout this entire season has just been insane, and I think the one thing that like if she does get to the end, like just the loyalty thing, she wants to be
Mm-hmm.
loyal to someone. She put her loyalty into Emily P. She put her loyalty into Brady. She showed Brady loyalty by playing the idol on him. I think that could be,
Mm-hmm.
that would be something that she could definitely use. It's, she, as we've said a million times, like she keeps getting wronged by the people that she tries to be
Mm-hmm.
loyal to. So it's not even like she's doing anything necessarily for that to happen, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like she gets to the end and it's like, well, you screwed over like the entire jury. I mean, she's trying to be loyal to people, and it was just she wasn't getting that back. So I think a
Yeah.
combination of that whole thing and honestly, just her play in this last round with just like we said,
Mm-hmm.
like buttering everybody up on the other side and paying for their meal and patty
Mm-hmm.
cakes with Eliza and all this stuff. Like uh, I think that would be something that would be looked at from the jury as like, damn, like she really. It's almost like she learned, not learned, but like, she was trying to give loyalty to people and they kind of weren't giving it back. So she sort of flipped it around and is like, she used that to her advantage and was like, well, I'm gonna now do the same thing to you in a way,
Yeah.
and build up this like sort of fake loyalty, and have the vote go how I want it to go. So yeah, I could see her, and her against Will would be really interesting in the end. But like, I feel like she beats Cassie, and her and Devin would be
Hmm.
interesting as well. Like we were talking about with him kind of going with a
Yeah.
few votes. But I think she's in a pretty good spot if she can get to the end.
I totally agree. I think Erin's a great example of peaking at the right
Hmm.
time. Like she really had a kind of a rough pre-merge and even post-merge, and then she just at that Ben boot when it's like when by all accounts she should have fallen apart and her whole game should have been ruined and all of that. She kind of just used it as fuel
Hmm.
and never gave up and just kept her head down and kept pushing. And now she's in a position where I love her story.
Hmm.
I think it's the exact opposite of what we were talking about of like I think she has the best story of anybody in the game. Even including Dylan and Brady. I think her story is better than them. I this might be a hot take. I think even if she gets there with Brady or Dylan, I think she has a shot.
Mm.
Like
Yeah, I
I
could see
don't know
that.
that she wins,
Yeah,
but I actually think she really might have a shot at getting at least some.
yeah, yeah. And if she tells her
Um,
story, in the perfect way, I think, yeah, she could totally sway a couple people to vote her way in the end. Absolutely.
I really and like you said, and this was such a great point is nobody can really be mad at her
Right.
because everybody tried to screw her at a different
Hmm.
point in the game. Like, and so nobody can say, well, you were disloyal or you did this or that or the other because her whole thing is like, everybody here tried to get me out at a different point.
Right. Right.
Like, nobody here wanted to work with me. Everybody here had written me off. And here I am. And like, at some point, you have to step back and go, yeah, you did it.
Hmm.
Like yeah, like you did it. And I think that really might be a compelling if she can articulate it, it might be a really really compelling final tribal council answer to give to a lot of the jury questions she's going to get, which
Hmm.
is to say like a like you can't be mad at me and
Right.
b I did this on my own and I did this on my own because
Right.
none of you wanted to work with me.
Yeah. No,
When
that's.
she has the
Hmm.
idol play with Brady, and especially if she ends up voting Brady out in some circumstance,
Right.
like where she can say she saved him one week and then voted him out a different week. I really think she's got a great story. I think she beats the whole bottom tier of players, even Devin, because as much as I think Devin has those three votes locked in, I think Aaron could easily pick up just about everybody else. Maybe not Dylan, but I think she can pick up all the rest of the
Mm.
votes
Yeah, that's a great point.
without much of a fight. And so I'm super high on Aaron at this moment,
Hmm.
both as a character and as a player. I think she's been fun to watch, and she's one of the people I'm really excited to pay more attention to on a rewatch. Like
Mm.
my second time through the season, I'm really excited because to be honest, like I wasn't paying that much attention to her in the pre-merge because it kept seeming like she was getting voted out every week.
Right.
Like
Right.
it was
Yeah.
constantly like, oh, we can't wait till we can vote out Aaron. And
Right.
now here she is in the final six, and it's like, man, like wait a second, how did she like if you had we watched the first couple weeks of the season and then fast forwarded to here and be like, oh, by the way, Aaron's in the final six, you'd be like, wait, excuse me? With who? How did she get there?
Right.
Nobody wanted to play with her. Nobody wanted to work with her. And yet here she is. I love her story.
Yeah, that I agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah.
So
And so then we move on to do you have Brady in number two?
I did, yeah.
Okay, I figured you did, but I didn't want to be presumptuous. I didn't want to speak for you again.
No, it's okay.
Um, all right, go. So you talk about Brady. I'll let you lead this discussion.
Yeah, I mean Brady's been interesting. I mean, from the very start, he's had just like a great social game. He's won a few
Mm-hmm.
immunities. He had an idol play on him. Um, yeah, it's I we've heard multiple that they would vote for him in the end. Whether that's true or not, we'll have
Mm-hmm.
to just wait and see. But
Yeah.
I think if he got to the end with, like we said, either like a Will, Devin, or Cassie, he definitely has
Mm-hmm.
it. It'll be interesting if it's him and Aaron or him and Dylan, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like luck has been on his side for
Definitely.
sure in this season, and I think his connections have definitely helped. I mean, he's been in multiple alliances, cross tribal alliances with multiple people, so he's set up well connections wise. So it's really just going to
Yes.
be, you know, it's kind of, yeah, it's like, is he could go in an immunity run and just keep winning immunities. So that would be
Mm-hmm.
something. And then it's just going to be how he's going to navigate trying to keep his target low. And I was going to say this when we were talking about Aaron, like with her, like I'm assuming like a pair to
Mm-hmm.
the other players now with her move on that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if like Erin playing the idol, like now her target is bigger because of that,
It
and maybe
definitely
that'll help
is.
Brady out, maybe skate by another round or two because of that. So it's really going to be interesting. I mean, it doesn't seem like he was catching on to sort of Dylan and Cassie kind of talking about wanting him out. Um, so maybe I'm sure the stealing of the idol that Dylan did maybe opened his
Yeah.
eyes to that a little bit more. So I don't know. I think he's set up well, but that doesn't mean, you know, he's guaranteed to get to the final two. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there.
I agree. I think with Brady, I think if he gets there, he
Mm-hmm.
wins. I don't see a scenario where he loses in a final two to
Yeah.
anybody. Um, but I also don't see a scenario of him getting there without running the table immunity wise and being safe every week.
Right. Right.
Because I just cannot possibly imagine a world where Brady doesn't have immunity and they don't vote him out.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, they deserve to lose. I mean, genuinely, if there's a week where he's not safe and they don't vote him out, they deserve to lose the
Yeah.
game. The rest of, I mean, they just do.
Right.
He's, I mean, when you have people going to the jury explicitly saying, "I am voting for person
Mm-hmm.
X," like where it's not even like you have to do the math in your head to figure it out, because we've seen before, like where people have been both on College Survivor and on CBS, where people have been very delusional about the amount of jury votes they were going to get.
Yes.
Like, but in this scenario where you have jury members explicitly saying, "I am voting for Brady," if he makes if he makes it there, like, so you don't even have to assume that that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I, you have to, and that's why I had him at 3 instead of 2, is because I genuinely think his only path there is running the table.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a guaranteed win if he makes it there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's hard. But we've seen people make mistakes before. We've seen people make huge mistakes before in Survivor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't want to, like, I didn't want to put him any lower than 3, because I was like, hey, if there's some weird confluence of where Aaron and Brady can somehow convince one of these other 4 people, I mean, probably Will, because Dylan and Devin and Cassie seem to be a fake.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can somehow convince Will to vote with them and keep Brady and force rocks or do something really bananas, like, you just never know. But but the other thing we have to talk about is, besides Dylan, who else here has even been close in an immunity challenge?
Yeah.
I mean, who won that first one at the Jesse boot?
I want to say it was Emily P. I feel like because
Okay.
she won, I think, 2 back to back in the very beginning.
Yes. Yeah, and that's like, and so if Brady wins at 6 and Dylan goes, which again, I don't know that that's what would
Yeah.
happen, but I'm just hypothetically, if that's what happens, Brady could run the
Yeah.
table.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, he really could. We've never seen it done in College Survivor like
Mm-hmm.
that, at least to my limited knowledge.
Yeah. I don't think I can think of anybody that just won like 4 immunities at the end.
They just rattled a bunch of them off at
Yeah.
at the end to win. I mean, you kind of have what CT does in All Stars a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but even then, it's not the same.
Right.
And so I really think it's possible, it's on the table, but I think it's the only way he gets there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But man, I say that, and now I'm going to immediately contradict myself. I'm going to argue with myself on the podcast because Brady is super charming, and
Hmm.
all of these people seem to really like him. Like,
Right.
there's no like. Sometimes when you get like the good looking alpha jock guy, like there's a lot of like resentment,
Hmm.
like of like yeah. Brady just doesn't seem to engender any of that.
Yeah.
Like everybody seems to super like him.
Right.
Despite the fact that like you don't even really see Will. Like Will's had mean confessionals about everybody else, but you don't even see Will in confessional being like, "Oh, look at Superman Brady, blah blah blah." Like you don't even see that.
That's
Like
very
it's like
true. Right.
everybody seems to really, really like him, and the only reason they're going after him is because they know he's gonna win.
Hmm.
So as I say, I think the only path he gets there is to run the table. But man, he could maybe charm some of these players and just go to the end and really kind of golden boy his way there. And who are you to resist? Who are any of us to resist the charm of Brady and making it to the end? And we'll have to give him his due if he's able to do it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that's something you see sometimes in these seasons where it's like the person who, you know, people are either charmed by or it's like, they want to protect him maybe longer than they should. And it's kind of like, oh, we'll get him out at 5 or we'll get him out at 4. But then it's like too
Yes,
late. It's too late to do it. So I feel like
the JT and Tonkintines thing of
hmm.
like he's so nice and we like him so much. And
Right. And then it's too
is
late.
Aaron? Does that make Aaron Steven Fishback? If
Possibly.
Brady is JT, is Aaron his Steven?
That could definitely
She
be.
does seem kind of like a Survivor know-it-all. She was on the podcast. She was on the Survivor Maryland recap
Hmm.
last night.
That's
So
true.
now I have a whole gosh, my mind is blown now. I have a whole new theory about this
Well,
season is that Brady and Aaron are JT and
does
Steven.
that mean Will is coach?
Oh my gosh, now we're cooking. That's exactly what it means. Will is coach and oh my gosh. Yes, that's exactly Cassie is Debbie and Devin is Aaron, and I guess that makes Dylan Taj, which I think
That's
works
so
for me.
funny. Yeah, I like that. I like that
Yeah,
pairing.
here we are. Okay.
So,
All right. And speaking of Dylan,
number one,
we both have him number one yet
the man, the myth,
again.
the legend, Mr. Dylan. Why don't you go first on Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Aaron is the example of peaking at the right time, I think Dylan is the on purpose version of that.
Hmm.
Of where he intentionally in the beginning talked about laying low and then making his move in the right moment.
Right.
And we hear people talk about that all the time on reality TV, all the time.
Hmm.
But I think Dylan might be the example of executing that almost to perfection
Yeah.
if he's able to pull it off.
Right.
Now, of course, like we said with Brady, there's a little bit of luck involved in the demerge and the remerge and the Ben and Will and all of that. But he managed that, I think, so well,
Hmm.
managed the relationship so well, was able to pick up Devin at kind of just the right moment, I
Yes.
think,
Yeah.
where was really kind of able to swoop in at just the right moment and kind of lock that in, where Devin seems totally loyal to Dylan. Like
Hmm.
it seems like Dylan is his number one.
Right.
Um, he's Cassie's number one. It seems that way. Um, I love the game Dylan's playing. I
Hmm.
love the position he's in. I think Dylan is at a place right now, and this is a bold statement, but I'm gonna make it anyway. I think Dylan is at a place right now where all he has to do is not make a mistake.
Yes. I agree.
Socially or strategically, just don't make a mistake
Hmm.
and you're there.
Yeah.
And he has enough to talk about in the final tribal council against anybody but Brady. I
Hmm.
don't think he beats Brady in a final two. I think he has trouble against Aaron. Like I think he's probably like a 60-40 favorite against Aaron or maybe 65-35.
Hmm.
But I also don't think Dylan is going to the end with Aaron.
Right. Yeah, that would be very
Like
strange.
I don't think that that's really a potential scenario.
Yeah.
So I think we're looking at if Dylan makes it there, he wins.
Mm-hmm.
And he deserves it.
Yeah, he does. Um, yeah, I mean, and I was thinking about this earlier too. Like, I feel like we're at a point in just Survivor as a game, whether it's TV, fan made, college, whatever. I feel like there used to be like a stigma about under the radar games where it was like, oh,
Yeah.
but I feel like now as the game is sort of evolving, I feel like that has become more of a something that you can more respectable, I guess, if like that's what you
Absolutely.
chose
I
to
agree.
do going into it. And I think this was the season for it to work. Like you were saying, there was these big characters, there was this the drama going on, the Will versus Ben thing. I think going into a game with that strategy, it like perfectly, especially in this season with so many big players and so many flashy players. I think, staying under that and then, but also staying likable too, I think
Mm-hmm.
is like the perfect combination. So yeah, I agree. Like you said, I think Dylan was the perfect person to pull that off. I think if he makes it to the end with pretty much everyone, I think he could totally take it. And um, I feel like he's been very calculating in how he's handled everything, and I
Mm-hmm.
think he would be able to. I feel like he would have a really good final tribal. If he can kind of lay all that
Oh,
out there
totally.
and kind of, we see like the fun side of Dylan, the confessionals and the jumping off of
Mm-hmm.
roofs and in penguin suits or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
But it's like I think he's one of those people who can like dial into the game when he needs to and like be that, you know, strategic player. And I think if he's able to lay out his game in Final Tribal, I think he's got it for sure.
I totally agree. I really think it's the Steve Sleasman thing.
Mm,
Like, I think it's the game Steve played in Maryland
yeah.
Outback, almost sort of like photocopied. Like, just that kind of super likable guy who everybody likes, surrounded by a whole bunch of bigger characters and crazy people, with kind of one big meat shield in front of him that's always going to be a bigger target than he is,
Hmm.
and then, I guess that makes Devin Nicole Senti in this situation, of like that kind of person who he can sit with at the end and say, either Devin or Cassie,
Right.
he's got options. He can sit with at the end and say, yeah, I was charming. These are the moves I made. I was under the radar till I needed to make moves, and then I did. And then at the end of the day, you throw up your hands and go, yeah, he did it.
Hmm.
He wins.
Yeah.
And I think, I love Steve Sleasman's game. I've been very clear about that. I was very clear about that during the Castaways at Quar minigame
Mm,
that they did. Like that, I think Steve doesn't get enough credit for being one of the great college Survivor players.
yeah.
Period. Um, and I think Dylan is on that track and possibly even on a better track, because I think he's been very articulate about, this is clearly what I was intending to do and clearly what I have now done.
Right. And I think he's really picked he's picked very similar players to sort of align with. I was just kind of like looking back,
Mm-hmm.
like him and Cassie is sort of on the lower end of like a flashy player, a big player. Devin the
Yeah.
same way. Dylan was close with it was Sarah
Mm-hmm.
before, who was another sort of like not. So I think he's picked really good allies. I mean, obviously he was aligned with Brady too, and I think Brady was like the perfect shield. It was like he didn't even
Yeah.
need multiple shields. He just needed
No.
the one, and then he was able to align with other people who were loyal, other people who you know aren't chaotic players. So I think, um, yeah, it's a very on paper, it's a great Survivor game. So yeah, if he gets to the end literally with anyone, I think, yeah, unless like you said, unless he makes like the little mistake within the last few rounds, I think he's got it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, what a great game. I mean, really, I think an all-time great college survivor game. I think
Hmm.
that's what we'll be talking about. If he's able to pull this off, I think what we'll be talking about is one of the all-time great college survivor games.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think we're talking about Dylan in the top tier of winners
Hmm.
across franchises.
Yeah,
But he's still got to get there.
right.
You don't get Sarah Zeed,
I know.
Dylan. Don't do it.
And I was thinking too, like it's mazed and confused as we keep saying. I mean, there could be another
Yeah,
twist or two in the
I
next.
know.
I mean, four people still need to be voted out. So an
It's
idol
true.
could out there. There could be something else that pops up. So who knows?
It's an exciting end game. I
It
feel
is,
like
yeah,
I'm pumped to see how this is going to end.
same. And I think, and I know it's weird to say, but I think having it be a final two. I mean, I know we talked about that already, but I think that adds, like we said, an extra layer to it, upped the excitement for the end game now
I agree.
because
I love the final two.
yeah. So hats off to production or whoever's idea that was, but um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm really interested to see how this ends. And I keep thinking back to Sarah Z on the podcast saying that it's going to be a very unpredictable. I don't forget if she said final two or final three, but so I'm kind of, I don't know. I mean, our whole list could
I'm
be
excited. Yeah, I
blown up in
know.
the next episode. So who the heck, by
Exactly.
another
We could
Ben
look
bomb
real
could come
foolish. Yes,
totally
exactly.
demolish our power rankings list. So yeah, I'm really excited to see
Yeah.
how it ends.
Yeah, me too. Alrighty, so every week we like to do a special ranking to go along with our main ranking of the players. And so, because we are coming into the end game this week, we wanted to do a little different. It's not a ranking per se,
Hmm.
but we wanted to go player by player and do a most memorable moment. So, usually when you get down to the final six, final five of Survivor, they kind of do that montage and flash through like oh, here's what happened, and here's what made this player, and here's how they got there, or whatever. And so we wanted to do the podcasty version of that and say, all right, so go player by player and say what would be the highlight of their montage? What's their big moment that we're going to remember for a
Hmm.
while? So do we want to start from the bottom again and start with
Yeah,
Cassie?
let's do that.
Okay, Cassie's big moment.
Do you want me to go first?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you definitely can. This is for people who don't know, we are recording this in real time, so everything you're hearing is totally off the cuff, including these
That's
pauses.
funny.
Yeah, go ahead. Cassie's big moment.
So I kind of just like, so I did my power rankings list and then I did this kind of second. And it was just kind of like,
Uh huh.
I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. I kind of was just like, I looked at their name and I was just like, what do I just remember the most? So I put
Mm-hmm.
just everything that happened in the episode with the Rocks Tribal. I think,
Yes, I did the same thing.
Cassie and Chloe sort of emerging as like the mean girls. I'm putting that in quotes.
Yes.
Um, just, some of their comments, I think she was the one that put the timer. Um, she was like,
Yes.
okay, we only, that they had that much time left. I think, that's definitely something that's most memorable for Cassie is just that whole entire experience. The two tribes just like not willing to work together, and yeah, I think that's what I came up with. What about you?
I think that's exactly what you walk away with when you think of Chloe, which is sort of like
Cassie.
she has been a better player, or Cassie. Oh gosh, Cassie. Um, which, like I was gonna say, she's been a better player than that. Like
Yeah,
she's in the final six,
right.
and like she's made it here. She's done things, but like when you think of Cassie this season, you're gonna think of the Rocks Tribal and
Hmm.
everything that went down there, especially because like poor Andrew and like the
I
way he went
know.
out and all of that. Like it wasn't even like there were definitely jabs being thrown on both sides,
Right.
but because you're so aligned with Andrew and you're so rooting for him in particular in that situation that when it goes down, it just cements this villain, college survivor heroes versus villains spot for Cassie for
Right.
sure. Not again to clarify, not a real life
Right.
villain. We're sure she's a lovely
Yes.
person, but on screen, character
Mm-hmm.
wise, College Survivor heroes versus villains sender. All right, so for Will, I think with Will, there's it's hard to think of a moment because you think so much of this Ben and Will
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, but I struggled with this because I went through a bunch of different scenarios with this of what I think is the I think Will crying is the
Oh.
signature moment that I thought of when I thought of Will. Because the thing I like about Will is that he is this very emotions right at the surface kind of
Mm-hmm.
player. And so we've seen him laugh, cry, yell, scream, fight, argue. We've seen him do everything. And I just think that moment of him just like clearly just being overwhelmed and crying, I think is really a lot of the Will game summed up of just he has played so hard for 70 something days,
Mm-hmm.
like just nonstop at 80 miles an hour for 70 days that just he is right there. So I went with that as
Okay, I
my
like
Will
that.
moment.
Um, and I thought of this just as you were talking, like will motions instead of emotions, will motions, just because
Yes.
like we've,
Yes.
like you said, we've seen literally every emotion you could probably in the dictionary come from
Mhm.
will, and I think it also kind of just shows like I don't want to say like the toll that it takes, but he's definitely given us like every angle of playing this game while being in school, while
Yes.
being friends with these people and having to vote them out. I mean, we've seen every sort of aspect of that. So I think it's actually been I like that because you don't see that very often.
Mhm.
I feel like, and of course, we love that he's like a little bit older, so I feel like we
Yeah,
can
of
relate to
course.
him on that level. So I just wrote, and I guess this kind of goes along with this. I just wrote confessionals. I just feel like
Yes.
Will. I feel like there's someone out there on Twitter that's doing a confessional account, but he has to have the most at this
Oh
point
yeah.
because I feel like his confessionals have been great. I hope someone somewhere in someday just takes all of his confessionals and puts them into just one long episode because I feel like that would be
Yes.
like the most will emotional roller coaster that we could ever go on.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, he's just provided so much entertainment just in his confessionals, and that's just what I think of. Like, I can't even pick out one specific moment. I mean, like you said, he's laughed,
Yes.
he's cried, he's yelled, he's cursed, he's in his car, he's everywhere. I feel like he's filmed a confessional in, like in every corner of campus.
Yes.
So yeah, I think he will definitely be um, a very memorable player, regardless of what happens in these last. Just what a big
I
character and what a
think
big player.
the point that you bring up, I think, is so great with Will. Is like so often, especially in College Survivor, it's sort of like, okay, we set up the camera, we're recording. Like, what was it from last season? Like, hey, this is Mike. It's 7:30 on a Friday. I'm recording a confessional. Like with Will, you get the idea that like we are just seeing Will's life. Like
Yes.
it feels like Survivor. Like there is just a camera on Will 24
Mm-hmm.
7. There is nothing performative about it. There is nothing stilted or staged or scripted about it at all. We are seeing Will it. Like just the absolute stream of consciousness out of his very soul in confessional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a reality TV contestant, what more could you really ask for
Right.
than to just have somebody who is just genuinely giving you unfiltered thoughts?
Yes. I totally agree.
So, yay for
Yeah,
Will.
we love Will.
Alrighty, so we have Devin next. What is your Devin
I
moment?
put the fake idol play. I feel
Yes.
like that was sort of like it was like welcome to the game, Devin. Like that was his
Yes.
emerging episode. I feel like he played that really well with Eliza. I think that was you know that's definitely something that I think of the most when I think of Devin. Was that the same tribal where he was drinking the beer, or was that a different one? It
Yes.
was okay.
No, that's the same one.
Yeah, so just that
No, no, no.
whole
Is
tribal.
that the same one?
I don't.
Yeah, yeah, it would have to be. Whereas the
Yeah, because I
PBR.
guess they were like either we go
Yeah,
home or
yeah,
this works out. So yeah, I thought that was a great moment. it kind of just like brought him into the more forefront of the game for me as a player. So that's what I went with.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think that was the first moment we started considering him
Mm-hmm.
and being like, oh, like, yeah, Devin is a player. Devin is here. Devin is ready to go. And then from there, it was like, oh, like he's doing stuff. Like we're
Right.
noticing more of him doing stuff. I also was like, him and Brady, or excuse me, him and Dylan,
Mm-hmm.
sort of forming that
Yes.
twosome
Yep.
of being like, I think was also the good Devin moment
Mm-hmm.
of like, yeah, he's playing. Like I don't know that he's really like, and even some of the stuff in confessional with Sabu Sabu people, like you're like, yeah, Dylan is. These people like Dylan. Like Dylan's doing okay. It took him from being kind of that invisible edit to sort of that under the radar edit. So
Yes.
I totally agree. I think him with the PBR playing the fake idol was the welcome to the game,
Mm-hmm.
Devin. Definitely that signature moment.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so Brady. This was sort of tough because I think, I think I mean, specifically one thing you think about Brady in particular when you think of him. I don't. Is that his signature thing? Is that what we're going to be thinking about Brady when we think about like 5 years from now? Like, remember that guy who
So,
never wore a shirt in confessional?
well, it's funny when hand just started writing. It was like,
Yes,
and it just put shirtless confessionals, and I'm like, is that
yes,
is that it? Is that
it's
all?
true. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I did put slash social game, so I wanted to throw that in there.
yes.
That like he has had a really good social game, but shirtless confessionals. I mean, whatever. It's no one's mad about it, so I'm sure
I
Brady would
mean,
take that in stride anyway. So that's what I
he seems
put.
like he seems like the kind of person who would appreciate
Right.
that. So like, but not to be just thirsty on the podcast, like not to be just solely thirsty. I did also put the balloons immunity
Mm.
because it or not the balloons immunity. The what's the one he won with Austin? The holding the egg with the
Yes, the demerge.
tubes
Yeah, the
immunity.
demerge immunity challenge.
Because we had sort of up to that point been making fun of him for like being this kind of shirtless dude bro alpha who couldn't win an immunity
Yeah.
challenge, and then all of a sudden he wins an immunity challenge and he hasn't lost one
Mm-hmm.
since. So I think that was a turning point for him of like, like we said, if he's able to Mike Holloway it and run the table
Right.
and go to the end, that will be like that big montage moment of like it all turned around when Brady defeated the reigning challenge beast
Mm-hmm.
Austin, and was able to be there, and then from then on went and won with Dylan and the balloons popping, and then touchy subjects and so on and
Right.
so forth. So yeah, so that's what I'll be thinking of when I think of Brady in the future is that holding the ball immunity challenge.
Yes.
Definitely what we'll be thinking of when we think of Brady. Oh, we're gonna get tweets about this, Joe.
Hey, it's been a long
We're gonna get
quarantine.
tweets
It's
about
been a
this.
long
It's
quarantine.
been a long quarantine.
So you gotta take what you can get, right?
Yes, we're gonna get tweets about this. This is. I'm moving on.
Yes.
Moving on to Aaron.
Okay, so the first thing I wrote was just the burgers, which I'm sure is something she probably doesn't want to be her. And I'm not necessarily saying that's her
Yes,
best moment, but it was just almost like just something like looking back on that was just so funny. Um,
it was such a weird, funny moment. I totally
yeah, it's like
agree.
I feel like you don't see that a lot in
Hmm.
College Survivor, but um, I don't know. It was like she was just trying to be like nice and helpful and cook a nice meal and um just serving rare burgers. I don't. So I'm vegetarian, so maybe I was like more put off by
Oh,
that
okay.
than some people. But
Yes.
before I was vegetarian, I've actually been in a similar situation where my family went to, I don't know, it was like a picnic, some family friend of ours, and they were
Hmm.
grilling burgers, and they literally put them on the plate in front of us, and they were still like bleeding. Like that's how they. I don't. We were like, how does
Mm,
this even? So I think maybe I was just like traumatized by that. So seeing that happen again,
okay.
I was just like, oh no, I've definitely been there. But I think it was just like a funny moment, and like Will is sitting there,
Yes.
powering through it, and I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that's her best moment, of course, but I think that was just a funny
Yes.
moment that I wanted to kind of touch on again. And I did give her another one. I just threw in faking out Sabu Sabu, in this last episode, or I'm sorry, 2 episodes ago. Her buttering them up and making that move. I think that was definitely, as far as like a game move,
Yes.
that's definitely what I would think of, is that, and then playing the idol on Brady. But I wanted to throw the burgers in there too, because I thought that was funny.
Yes, that is super funny. Actually, mine was a more recent thing too. I think this week, my Aaron move was also from this episode, and it's the when Will gets the information, her basically like grabbing Will
Oh
and
yeah.
pulling him aside and being like, "What is that?" I think it's the first time we ever saw Aaron as like Aaron is in charge,
Mm-hmm.
like Aaron is in control,
Yeah.
and it was really like such a good fun moment to see with her to be like I think Erin has a lot of power in
Mm.
this game. I think she is in the exact right spot right now. And to me, it was the first time that instead of being like kind of like on the outside, like nobody wants to work with me, Erin, it was like, no, I'm taking charge. You tell me what this information is, or I'm going to vote
Right.
you
Right.
out. Like, I was like, good for you,
Yeah.
Erin. I love, and she got the real information. He didn't
Right.
lie to her because he can't keep a
Right.
secret.
Yeah, that lasted all of what, like 5 minutes, and then everybody knew.
uh,
So
so
funny.
good. Yeah, so all right, and that leaves us with Dylan.
So I put confessionals again, just because,
Oh
I mean,
man.
especially in the
I, you
beginning with
know,
those, that one confessional that they've continued to use throughout the season. I mean, again, Dylan's
yes.
already a player, especially if he wins, but I think
Mhm.
the confessionals, splicing those in. And again, I think we said in our first episode, we hope Dylan makes it really far because we want to see them in every episode.
Yep.
So I put that. I think that it just adds this kind of level of comedy to the season, and I feel like Dylan is the perfect person to have done that.
I totally agree. Obviously, I think that is the thing you think of when you think of Dylan, but also I specifically thought of the one where his roommate or somebody is in the room when he's trying to film a confessional
Yes.
and he can't get through it, like because he can't stop, like he can't take it seriously
Right.
enough to get through it. That for me, like that's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like even out of context, if you showed that to somebody who didn't watch Survivor, that would just be funny. Like the idea that he can't get through it with a roommate in the room. It was so funny. It was so uniquely Dylan. It was so
Right.
charming.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Yeah.
so charming, so likable that I just think like you look at that and you're like, yeah, like this guy, you can see why people want to work with him, why
Mm-hmm.
people want to keep him around. We even talked at the Sarah booth that it probably should have been Dylan at the Sarah booth because he's a much bigger threat than she was, had a
Right.
much bigger social game than she did, but they didn't do it
Mm-hmm.
because it's Dylan.
Right.
You're not going to vote him out. He's the silly fun guy. So I totally agree. I think that's Dylan's signature thing, signature montage moment.
Yeah. I hope he makes it to the finale, because I hope they put a lot of those in there. And I could see also like
Me
him
too.
winning, and then just at the very, very, very end, just throwing in one last one, just
Yeah.
to
Wow. That was
off.
something. I would love that. It would be the perfect button to this entire season.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Well, another power rankings done.
Mm-hmm. Heading into
And
the
we are
finale.
hurtling towards the end. I am
Yeah,
excited.
same. I'm really looking forward.
Anything could happen.
Yeah. Who knows? You think one thing, you go into the
Who knows?
episode, and literally it's the complete opposite. So
Could be anything else. So we are excited to talk about the end game with you. But until next time, I'm Paul. This is Joe.
and we'll
say goodbye.
I don't know what I was doing there.
We're not even editing this, so this
Yeah,
is
this
just
is
one
staying in.
take all the
This
way
is
straight
right.
through.
Yeah, why
So
not?
this is staying through. Thank you for listening all the way through. That was your treat for making it to the end of this podcast, and we will see you next time.
Everybody.
Bye.